All right, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Elaine Karemu. I'm the founder of Synergy International Nursing Network and the CEO of NCO Healthcare Consulting. So today, we'll be talking about how to help you prepare for your nursing interview and basically how to, especially for competency-based interviews. So for either you're planning to travel abroad, or even you're abroad and you're looking for jobs. So the nurses generally, most of the time you are required to complete some competency-based, interview questions, so to say. And during the interview, even during the application, sometimes you are required to fill in the form using a competency-based approach. So I'm going to be sharing some of my experience, even why in the job market here in Ireland, and I believe this is applicable to everyone, wherever you are, wherever country you are. So this can be applicable. So you need to be able to understand what is required of me. So first of all, when they say competency-based, so competency-based in the sense that you are required to demonstrate how competent you are. They want you to demonstrate how competent you really are in the form that you are filling or during the interview. So it is not just about saying I'm a nurse, oh, I have 15 years experience, I have this. They want you to demonstrate in writing or in speaking how you are able to do those things that you say you do in your CV. Okay, so I'm going to start first of all with, if you have not watched my video on how to prepare for interview before, I've done a video, so you can go back to that. So I'm not going to be going into all the nitty-gritty of interview preparation video, either if it is face-to-face interview or it is a telephone interview. So I've done a video on that before. You can go back and check my YouTube channel, Nurse Kuchola, and you will find more details there. But tonight, I just want to focus on competency-based interview. I've received a lot of requests. I've received a lot, but I say a lot of requests on how can you help me on how to prepare for this interview. I have an interview coming. I have an interview coming for this role, for different roles like that. So how do you prepare for your nursing interviews? I've sent in a couple of documents to the Nurse to Ireland mentorship group as well. And I'm basically going to be using some of these in this discussion today. So like I said, it might be situation. They want you to describe some situation that you have worked in, maybe in an ICU. They want you to be able to say, what task did you do? They want you to be able to say, what action did you take? What recommendation, and so on. So sometimes competency-based interview are known as situational behavioral interview. So it's commonly used in the UK and majorly other Western world. Okay, so as an organization evolves, they want to talk about how your skills match the job requirements. They want to be able to describe or demonstrate how your skill match up the requirements of the job that you have just applied. So competency-based interviews are based on the premise that your past behavior is likely to predict your future behavior. So if you have done something like this before, that means you might be able to apply that as well in another scenario or in another situation. So that is why most of the time they use that approach of competency-based interview. Okay, so the interviewer will seek examples of past behavior that provide him or her with concrete evidence. So the word competency is basically something quantifiable, measurable. I'm explaining this so that you have to use measurable terms. You have to be specific. You have to use something that you can quantify, not just saying, oh, I cared for him. How do you measure care? How do you measure care? So those are the things they want you to really talk about. Okay, those are the things they want you to talk about. I'm just trying to go in. All right, so they are typically the structure of a competency-based interview is basically into like 4. They want you to describe a situation when you perform a particular procedure, or they want and then give examples. So they can say, describe a situation, or they can say, give an example when you exercise authority. So for instance, so after providing the example, they want you to talk a bit about some details, okay, of the interview. So competency-based interviews are structured, where each question is designed to test one or more skills. So if they ask you, what can you offer? What can you offer our company? It's just a very broad question, but for competency-based interview, it's going to be very specific, okay? They want to see you talk about the skills you have. I can't overemphasize this. For instance, your communication skills, your ability to organize and prioritize, your capability of working under pressure. They want you to demonstrate this. They want you to talk about your ability to influence and negotiate, how proficient you are when you're coping with stressful situations. They can be asking you about to know how, if you are able to lead, if it's a leadership role. Also, so some of the keys and competencies for competency-based interviews are adaptability. How well are you able to adapt in different situations? Your compliance. So are you complying with the organization policy? How well do you communicate, with your team? So they want to see you demonstrate that you have communication skill. Conflict management is another skill and competence that is tested. Innovation, how innovative are we? I've done an interview and they asked me in my last job, was there any innovative change that I brought into the table? So if you're asked that kind of question, what will your response be? Okay, so they want to see how innovative are you. They can ask you stuff about delegation. Do you delegate? They want you to describe, demonstrate all these skills. So delegation, flexibility, independence, resilience. Sometimes some questions will ask how resilient you are, okay? They might ask you if you are a risk taker, or how sensitive you are to others. So those are all the skills that is required, and so many other ones like influencing, how you depend. Are you an independent thinker? Are you a critical thinker? Do you have integrity? So all those are some of the skills that are needed for a competency-based interview. To be more specific, if they ask you this question, how do you ensure that you maintain good working relationship with your senior colleagues? How are you going to answer that question? If the question is, how do you ensure that you maintain good working relationships with your senior colleagues? Now, in that simple question, they want you to demonstrate, there are some skills that you need to demonstrate there or talk about. The first one there is, teamwork. The other one, because this is a senior colleague, they want to see your respect, for others, paying attention to others. They want to see your loyalty. They want to see your compliance to organization, policy of, organogram or hierarchy. Now, compliance, I've talked about compliance, conflict management. So they also want you to demonstrate it. So you can go along and describe a situation where you were able to maintain good working relationship with your senior colleague. Probably there was a conflict, there was, something happened in the world, and you were able to establish, maybe through your good communication skill, you can say something like, I approached the nurse manager, explaining the situation of things, in a calm manner, so you have to demonstrate that you communicate well and that you respect the other person. Okay, you might also include that I was able to resolve the conflict. I was able to talk through to the manager in a calm manner, in a conducive environment. So with a very low tone, you need to demonstrate all that. Another one could be, give us an example of a situation where you had to deal with a conflict with an internal or external client. So that is bringing in your conflict management skill. How are you able to resolve a conflict? So some of these things we all know, but it's the application of it that we need to start thinking about or reflecting about. So for instance, if you have a family member that comes in to the hospital and was very angry, maybe complaining about the care of their loved one. So how do you resolve such a conflict if the person becomes maybe very verbally abusive to staff? So how do you control that situation? They want to see you demonstrate. So for a conflict management skill demonstration, you need to be very calm. You need to be a good listener. So you can use those words that you approach the scene or you approach the clients, in a very calm and, peaceful manner, explaining the situation, and, you establish, you try to introduce yourself, ask the person to sit down, offer a cup of tea, listen actively to the person without interrupting them. And afterwards, like, you were able to clarify any question, answer any question they have, and clarify any query. So those are, if you want to revise conflict management, it might be worthwhile, but they will need you to demonstrate. Another question is, how do you influence people in situations where there are conflicting agendas? So these are just common examples, okay? We will get into detail about the nursing questions. So think about all these questions. How do you answer them? Another one, they can ask you, tell us about a situation where you made a decision and then change your mind. Okay, so those are specific, very, very specific ones. Okay, now let's talk about what the requirements or the different divisions. Like I said, I'm going to be using an example of some interviews that I've done or some application forms that I've filled. Especially for Ireland, if it's HSC, the HSC, most of the HSC jobs, you have to complete it, fill the form, the competency-based form. You write everything down, describing before you submit. So as I was saying, you will be asked to describe a situation when you do something, or you are expected to give an example of a time when you do something. So after providing examples, you need to, sometimes they ask you to delve deeper into the situation. They want to monitor, or they want to assess your individual competencies. I've mentioned those competencies, those skills. They want to assess your managerial competencies. They want to assess your analytical competencies, your interpersonal competencies, motivation for competencies, and most importantly, they want to see your problem solving and judgment skills. So basically, for your nursing interviews, you have different subheadings, but most of the time you will find problem solving and maybe critical judgment. They want to see how you demonstrate that. Sometimes you can have something like self-management, self-motivation, and self-knowledge. You can also have communication and leadership. You can have conflict management and ethics. I hope you are taking notes. Sometimes they ask you questions related to your personal and career objectives. Sometimes you are asked questions related to adaptability. Another subheading could be problem solving and decision making. I think I've talked about that. Communication, organizational awareness, or organization and planning. You want to see how organized you are, how well you are able to plan well. Okay, they can ask. Another subheading is teamwork, teamwork, conflict management, and so many others. Of leadership. Yeah, that's another subheading, leadership and people management. Those are the subheadings that you might come across. Now, before I continue, you are expected to answer your questions in a particular format. Okay. Most of the time, some people call it the STAR format. Okay. Some other literatures might say the SAO format, but generally in Ireland, we just go by the STAR format. So what I mean by the STAR format is that you are expected to, I just deleted something there. You are expected to talk about the situation, the task, the action you took, and then your recommendation or results of the action you took, so to say. So they want you to demonstrate that. So I'll go over that again. Its acronym is STAR. Situation, describe a situation. Then you talk about explain the task or highlight the task that you did. Then what action did you take, and what recommendation or what was the result? What was the result of your action, or what came out, recommendation or report or anything as a result of your action. So those are some of that's the format, so to say, the format of the interview. So let me share with you an example of my own interview and how it went. So at the time I applied for a staff nurse general role, I think about a few years ago, community and community intervention team. And like I said, if it's HSC, you are expected to fill in the form in that, the competency-based highlights. So first of all, I was asked under the planning and organizational skills. Now, I'm sharing this example so that you can use that to apply to your own situation, okay? So this is a staff nurse, a senior staff nurse role. And at that time, I was even a CNA, but it was a role I just wanted to try, because one thing about me is that I just apply for jobs that I know that I don't even want to take, than just because I just want to have an experience, of that, the interview. So planning and organizing skill, that is the first subheading there. It is important that the staff nurse general has the ability to plan and organize resources effectively and efficiently within specified time frames. To underline what they just said, the ability to plan and organize resources efficiently and effectively. So he or she coordinates and schedule activities, managing unexpected scenarios when they arise. He or she is flexible in approach to his or her workload and is open to change. So they tell you in this space below, please give an example of a situation where you best demonstrated your ability in this area. So which area are we talking about in planning and organizing? So listen to what I said. I said, as a clinical nurse manager, like I said, we are going to use the situation, the action, the task, action, and outcome. But you don't have to write S situation and then describe the situation. You could just go ahead and just make sure that the four of them are reflected. If it will help you to itemize them and then write on that is fine. But it is not, there's no rule that says you have to do that. I hope you understand. You can just write it as an essay, but make sure that each of the elements is reflected in your essay. So to answer this question, this was my response. As a clinical nurse manager, I'm responsible for supervising nursing staff in a nursing home. So this involves organizing the roster and shifts in such a way as to allow for efficient and effective workflow. My organizational skill is evident as I consider tasks as skill missing when it comes to rostering and staff allocation to tasks and units. So those are my tasks. For instance, I ensure skill mix and gender balance. Now, remember I talk about being measurable. So you need to use measurable terms. I ensure skill mix and gender balance to allow for smooth running of the care assignment. I also ensure that my staff resume might resume early to work by making sure that all staff come in before I leave or make arrangement for extra cover in case we are short of staff. So managing the staff and residents is another major role I play on a daily basis. Managing staff conflicts in any managing staff conflicts, if any arises, family complaints and resident safety are part of my role. So now I went further to describe a particular role, from a discharge point of view, I was responsible for facilitating a discharge of a resident. So that is kind of explaining. So you have to be detailed. I think there are maximum, I don't really think there are a maximum number, but you can write as much as you can to demonstrate that. The other aspect you need to talk about, this other subheading, is building and maintaining relationship. How do you build and maintain relationship? Very important. So they say it's better that a staff nurse general demonstrates good interpersonal skills and the ability to build and maintain relationship. He or she will have the ability to work independently as well as part of a wider healthcare team and deliver a supportive work style, including strong empathy with service users. So here again, they said, give an example of a situation. I always like to start like, oh, as a clinical nurse manager or as a staff nurse, I have demonstrated great leadership by creating and coordinating the assessment of care delivery for my residents, particularly in the aspect of care planning. For instance, so you start with a situation and you can go specifically to the tasks and give examples. So then you can cite different examples, even in that situation, if you have more than one. So one example I gave for this particular one, so that you can understand how the flow. You can say, in my previous role, on several occasions, I have deputized the CNM in my unit. I ensure listening attentively to my team and valuing their suggestions. I also ask them for contributions to raise their engagement. After the shift, I asked my team for feedback. So if you notice that I kept on using I, so you need to personalize, because this is your competence, this is your action, this is you. So don't say the staff nurse will. You have to personalize it, that I did this, I did this, I did this. So it is you. So I ensure to lead by example as a nurse preceptor with trust and respect for others. I am aware and I comply with principles of clinical governance, so on. So give as much example as possible. If you want to describe a situation, you want to describe something, an event. For instance, if there was a fight or maybe a patient reacted to a medication, how did you handle that? Or you had a COVID outbreak, how did you manage? So you must use I did this, I did that. So that makes it very, personalized. Okay. So that is communication and building relationship, or building and, relationship. Most the common examples that, you can use there, yourself, you can use it, maybe your patient. How did you build a relationship with a new patient, or maybe with a difficult patient, if you have done that? So you use that as an example. and you've talked more about your strengths in your description. So maybe you are a very good active listener, or you are a very empathetic person. You have to talk about that. For instance, I said one of my major strengths as a nurse leader is building on my interpersonal relationship, that is building trust. I have had feedback from colleagues that says I have a good interpersonal relationship. And honestly, that is the truth for me. So as it's you talking about your reality, it flows better rather than trying to frame up or make up something. So there are every of the subheadings, every of the subtitles that they want to talk about, you have experienced it. All you just need to do is to think about, just reflect on some past practices, some of your something where you have worked before, or certain days that you have worked. And the more authentic it is, the more original, or the more natural it is, the more original, and the more you are able to really communicate the mind of your interviewer. Okay, so that is about building and maintaining relationship. I think the other one, next one, is commitment to providing a quality service. So this is very common. They want you, now I say an effective staff nurse general will demonstrate a commitment to providing a quality service. Now ask yourself, what is a quality service? What do they mean by quality service? For every procedure, there are quality. Once there is a policy that you have to follow, quality care, every procedure, every service, there are quality aspect of it. And that's what makes it when they say, oh, it's for you're providing quality service, it is down to earth. It is void of flaws or any imperfection. So how do you maintain that? How are you committed to provide? Have you had any situation that you committed to providing a quality service? So they want you to demonstrate this. They also want you to say he or she is innovative and open to change in striving to ensure high standards in service delivery. So of course they will say, use an example. So I started like this. I said, I am a self-starter who shows initiative, assumes responsibility for results, I anticipate potential challenges, and proactive rather than reactive. I use critical thinking effectively to inform practice while practicing from a competent knowledge base. I am skilled in carrying out primary and secondary research to validate existing nursing skills and develop new strategies to provide evidence-based care. That is me, first of all, describing myself. Then I went further. I said, currently, I'm working on an innovative approach to discharge care transitions of older people from acute hospital to reduce readmission rates. As a nurse manager, I provide vision and secures the necessary resources to ensure the organization quality improvement efforts are successful. So you can see there that I'm only describing what I do. Sometimes it might be good for you to go back to the job description of that role. Go back to the job description, and the job description will help you to align what you should do with what you are doing. So you can then put it into an action statement, action word. You can action it, bring it to life using, some words, some grammar, that you have seen in the job description. And like I said, the more simple it is, the best. Make it very natural as much as possible. Remember that you are expected to provide examples of a time or give a situation, describe a situation that you demonstrate one thing or the other. All right, so there are other subtitles, subheadings that leadership and delegation could be another subheading. They want you to describe one particular time that you have demonstrated leadership, or that you've shown your leadership skill. They want you to demonstrate that, which I think is very important. Okay, so that is about that. I'm trying to get into my Zoom. It's not coming up. Can you see me now? So I've talked about the different layers. Now, you can have a situation. Let me check. There's a recent interview question that I saw. I'm going to share a few of that as well. Pardon my I think I'm losing my voice. It's a bit cold here. So if you are asked to talk about your past maybe conflict management, how do you go about that? Maybe they want to see how you were able to resolve a conflict, between a colleague, between two colleagues. It might not even be you. What did you do, even as a nurse, or to resolve that conflict? Normally, they want you to demonstrate that you are not biased, you are attentive, and you promote the safety of both of them. So you can talk about how you approach the scene, how you try to persuade, talk to, both individual persons. And in a workplace, remember that in a workplace, you have a duty of care to report anything like that, any fight that happens in your workplace. So you need to be able to mention as well that you inform your nurse, maybe the line manager of the situation. This is not you, what will I call it now, trying to report your colleagues. Is just a duty on some of your accountability and, responsibility as a worker. Okay, they can add, I want to ask you how flexible and adaptable you are. So a way they ask that question, they can say, tell us about a time when you were leading a project. Now, I've been asked this question multiple times. So I know you just have to use the STAR method, the STAR acronym situation. Talk about the project you led. Oh, I remember 2 years ago, I was opportune to lead the project called so, and then now describe the project. The project is this, is all about this. Now, what action did you take? What are the tasks you did? So I was able to talk about how you organize your meeting, how you called in people. I'm just saying this as an example. So what I'm saying is, in essence, is that your description must be measurable. It's not just a broad explanation. It had to be measurable. Then you had to, what was the final outcome? So sometimes they ask you some follow-up questions. So there will be leading question, follow-up question, and then of course they have some criteria that they are looking out for there. If they say, how did you tell us about when you were leading a project? That's the leading question. Now the follow-up question could be, how did you manage the changes? What was the final outcome? So they really want to know what the final outcome of whatever you did was. Sometimes they ask about I've talked about relationship, okay? They can ask you stuff about innovation and critical thinking, how creative you are. Have you bring about any change in your workplace? So now, to be honest, we all bring about change every day, only sometimes we don't know. So if we are the ones struggling to really identify that, oh, have I actually brought about change? What did I do? Just think of your normal shifts. The way you go, stand up from your home, and you go to work, and you're able to care for a patient, even if it is only medication that you gave, you have made a change in the life of that patient. So if you don't have any other instance to use, that alone is enough. You made a change, or you made a patient smile. There's a particular patient that always is always angry, but how your interventions and your, just describe yourself. It's like hyping yourself. Let me put it that way. You hype yourself, constructively and in a very professional way. That is what an competency-based interview. Just sell out yourself. This is what I do. This is what I know how to do best. So they can ask you, how did you apply any newly learned skill to your current job? They want to see if you have any innovations. They can ask you if you have done some professional development, courses. They want to see if you are open to, learning at all times. So those are some common examples. Okay. Now, I think I've mentioned this as well, that if you have not seen a previous video on interview, how to ace, your job interview, is on my YouTube. Please take advantage of that and go through it. I think I have some slides there, so that can be very useful. So again, I'll just recap that as I round up on this, how to prepare on these aspects before going to the next section. The nature of the task, problem or objective, that's one thing they want you to give an example of. Then sometimes they ask you to give example what you actually did and how you demonstrated the skill or quality. Okay. Now, sometimes the other one is the outcome or result of the situation. So those are the highlights. So again, I say you may use the word precursor to reproduce this page. You have to use I. You have to use I, personalize when you are writing. Now, I'm going to give an assignment to everyone. Either you are preparing for an interview or not. Either you've gotten a job offer, maybe you are still preparing, you are looking for a job offer. Even if you are yet to start your NMBI registration or your NMC UK registration, it is important. I want you to use those subheadings and build up something for yourself. Write it out yourself using the STA app. That's an assignment for you, a work to do. I'm not going to call to assess it, but it's going to be very good if you can do this for yourself. So your skill area, I'll go over it again. The skill area, communication skills, organization and planning, leadership and delegation, innovation and creative thinking. What other subheading? Building and maintaining relationship, conflict management. So even if that's all, I'll talk about leadership. So just write up using the star, describe a situation that you have gone through that. So I've talked about organization and planning skills. Sometimes they call it organization and management skills. So still similar, building and maintaining relationship. Now, the other one that sometimes they ask is your problem solving and decision-making skills. What time did you encounter, a very difficult situation, and how did you solve it? What did you do to resolve the situation? So that's problem solving and decision-making skills. So that is about your competency-based interview. You just either your interview is a paper form, because sometimes you are asked to fill in the form in that format. So either way, or it is actually an interview, virtual or face-to-face, and they will ask you this question. Just be very relaxed. Now I'm going to go to the second aspect of this class today, is why you fail your interview. Now, if you ask me, have I passed all my interview? No, I have failed interviews. I've received a lot of rejection, letters. We are sorry, unfortunately, so many, either in this, before this current role or in previous roles. Now, using the one thing I do is after an interview, I don't just throw everything away. And the beauty of most of these jobs here, especially in Ireland, is that they will send you a transcript of how you did. So you can build up yourself using, your weak areas. I always like feedback. If they ask me any question, I will always answer them. I will always say, oh, this is my question because I want to know how I'm going to get a feedback. But once the feedback come, I'll take it and, really settle in with it. So now, why you feel those interview? Number one, which is very common, is that, and I've made this mistake as well. Once you see a job advertisement, you have gone through the job description, okay? But did you save the job description? Now I'm going to start with job description. You failed that interview because you did not understand the job description. You did not save it, the job description. Now, the way, especially those that you can ask those that are applying for more than 100 jobs a day, you don't save it, or you model it up. So there was a time I actually went for an interview for a job, but I prepared for another job for that interview. So because I applied to almost 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, so, and I completely mixed it up. So the interview I went for was another one. Like, I actually prepared for something else. There were 2 different jobs. And on getting to the interview, even with myself, it was funny, because when they're asking you, they will ask you, sometimes they ask you your understanding of the role you're applying for. And I was saying something completely different. I was talking about the other job, and they were just looking at me. So in the middle of my talk now when I realized that I'm already done talking, I had to, bring back and try to modify and bring myself back. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm not even sure if I got the job or not, but that alone is enough for you to fail that interview, because you did not understand the job description. You did not understand the role that you're coming into. So apart from just looking for a job, which everybody's looking for, most people, I want a job offer, I want a job offer, my decision letter will soon expire, I want a job offer. Do you understand? Because even if it's a staff nurse role, go through the job description, save it on your laptop, on your phone, save it, because you might have to go back and, like I said, some of the information in the job description will help you in your interview, even help you in your application when you're applying for the job. So it is not just for fun. Sometimes they attach additional information, a separate sheet, to go through them, because you might find something very, helpful. So I've talked about one of the major reasons why you failed an interview is you did not understand the job description or the role. And some recent interview, the most recent interview I had, and they asked, when they sent the transcript, they said they think I scored 35%, or is it 65 or 45, something like that, I can't remember, percentage. They have their transcript, they will have subheadings. So under understanding of the job, the role apply for, I didn't score well, and so many people as well, because you did not understand the job description, or you did not remember. In fact, that day I remember that I had to send message when I was on my way to the interview, and then when you're just thinking about something, I just remember, what exactly is this role about it? I was asking my husband, please help me to my laptop, send this to me, and like that. And but it was too late. So you need to understand the job role. Now, the second reason why people fail interview, either face-to-face or it's a virtual interview, generally preparation. Now, what do you prepare for? Do you research the company? Do you research about the company itself, or where they are, your employer, the employer you're applying to? They said, what do you research for? Research about their policy, their vision, their values, what they stand for, because it will reflect in your own answer. For instance, if an hospital, if they are Catholic, maybe they are Catholic-based employer, and it might be worthwhile to just talk about, wow, that I know that this is a faith-based organization, and my value aligns with the value of the organization. So it's a selling point for you. Okay, so you need to understand that. And the third one is, if you fail, people fail the interview if they don't research the panel that will be interviewing. So most of the time, when you're invited for an interview, they will send you the names. They will write there the names of those that will be in the panel that will interview you. That is the usual thing, but might not be applicable in every setting anyways. So when you are asked this, who, or when you are given this list, it's important that even if it is Google, you want to Google that name, or on LinkedIn, or sometimes maybe on their profile, a professional profile, just look up a little bit details about them if you find any. You know, this will help you to know the kind of people that want to interview you, and to kind of anticipate what question could this person ask, you know. And sometimes they are very open. They will tell you that so person will be asking you question in this area. So it helps you as well to prepare. Now, another reason why you might fail an interview might not be because you are not competent. It might be your communication style. How do you demonstrate? How do you talk about it? Are you organized? Are you coherent in your delivery? You know, when you're talking, are you coherent? Can people hear you clearly? Do you speak too fast? Do you speak too slow? Okay, or you modeled up, you, instead of it to start from A, you are starting from W, and then you're coming back to A. So how organized are you, even in your communication? Okay, so you need to, and this comes with rehearsal. Honestly, it's not, and not everybody, it's not about fluency this time. It's about you, knowing what to say at the right time and arranging it that way. I tell you an example as well. I love to use myself as an example. Like I said, I've failed so many interviews and I've passed so many as well. Okay. But the number that I failed are more than the one I've passed. Okay. So, and sometimes they ask you some questions and maybe you can't really understand. You've not gotten the real answer. Just keep talking about something else before you get exactly what you want to talk about. You've already digressed. So that alone can make you lose points, because the time all this thing, they just caught you when you talk too much and you are not hitting the point. I was at an interview, and even me, as I was talking, I was confusing myself in what I was saying. And the interviewer was like, can you come again? I didn't hear. Do you mean this? I had to, correct myself, because I knew myself that I had spoken jargon. Like everything I said made no sense. Okay. So your communication style, your communication pattern sometimes could make you fail. So how do you communicate? And it comes to rehearsal. Don't be too familiar with, maybe you have been applying to several jobs. It's the same thing. So it comes to rehearsal. Rehearse before you go. Now, the last thing, there are so many other things, but the last thing I'm going to talk about, or why, which is the fifth one, why people fail interview, is I've talked about not researching the job. I've talked about not knowing too much of the job description. If you don't research the interviewer, the company, your communication style. Okay. Now, the last one is this. It's still about your competence. Okay, I'll talk about competency based. You need to know your onions. You need to know your onions. So if you are not competent enough, it's going to show. Like, it is going to show in how you talk. So it is important that you really practice, reflect on your practices, take a pause, don't rush. If you want to ask, if you don't understand the question clearly, ask. Like, can you explain what you mean by this question? That is a very polite way of asking. It doesn't mean that you're asking them to tell you the answer. So you can just say, can you explain what you mean by this question? I did not really get it. So, and they ask you, rather than assuming that this is what you heard and saying something else, because you will lose mark. All right, so those are I'm just going to, there's so many other reasons. Of course, lateness. If you're not punctual enough, it could disorganize you. Some employers are so strict with time. Once you are late, then you are late. Even sometimes, even if it is the submission, if they say 12 a.m. submission, you are submitting 12:01, that is, that alone can, disqualify you. So you have to be on time, you have to dress neatly. Like I said, if you have not watched the previous video on how to prepare for interview or how to ace that job interview, it's on YouTube there, Noscoshola. Please go and watch it. All right, so that is all I'm going to discuss tonight. We'll be talking about competency-based interview preparation for nurses and why people fail the nursing exam. So I'm going to take a few questions from the house now, and before we round up.